Hey homeschool friends, welcome back to the channel. So we have been schooling for a little less than a month now. We started at the end of July and some things have gone as expected and some things have not. And so in these monthly update videos, I tend to like to talk a little bit about life, a little bit about like family subjects, how those are going, as well as my individual kids. And this year I have a 5th grader, 4th grader, and twin 1st graders to update you on. And so I hope this video doesn't get too long, but I just kind of want to chat through all the things. I want to chat through how it's all going and maybe seek some advice, all the things. So stay tuned if you're interested in kind of how things have kicked off in our homeschool. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel if you're new, or welcome back, all the things. So before I get too far into this video, I do need to say a quick shout out to Sonlight for sending me a number of these resources in exchange for my honest review and all of that stuff. And I always have them linked down below as well as a $10 off coupon code. So go check that out if you are interested. So let's hop in with life updates. And you guys, August has been interesting. And I did make a community post sharing the fact that this August is my infusion month for my autoimmune disease. And so I anticipated this month being just not quite normal, and there has been some adjustments. But as for how I'm doing, honestly, it was the best infusion month I've had in a long time. I just finished my 2nd infusion last week, and oh my gosh, it's been much better. And I'm super thankful for that. It made me tired and all of these things, but it didn't cause as many like side effects and bad things as it did last time. But yet, like I said, it does make me really tired. So I adjusted ahead of time as to how much school we were going to do. So like I said, we started end of July. So we've done about 4 weeks, like calendar weeks, but I've only done about 2.5 weeks worth of Sonlight, which is kind of how I gauge my schedule, to be honest, is I have 36 weeks of Sonlight and I work around that. So there were days where I just had my big kids do core subjects and my twins, I let them play. Or some days, you know, I just adjusted things to make the load a bit lighter. But that's really the major thing going on in life right now. And it's really nice to be on the other side of that and settling into our homeschool. And I'm really hoping we can really get our feet under us for September. But let's just hop into family subjects, which are my favorite to talk about every year. And even more so this time around, you guys. I have been waiting to do Sonlight HBLD since I started Sonlight, because I knew that was the program where everything started to be integrated. Like the kids' readers started to integrate with history. A lot of the read alouds are more integrated with history. Now they were a little bit in the past, but now it's like a full-on immersion study pretty much into this historical time period. And we are studying American history. And what I also did is I am combining my 2 sets of kids. So I do have HBLD, which is year 1 of 2 of American history. And then I have HBLK, which is like intro or exploring American history. I can't quite remember what they're called. But what I'm doing with the 2, since I already had the HBLK from when I used it with my big kids, is I am using HBLD as my main core program. So that sets the stage for kind of topics, if you will. So basically we're going through HBLD and then I'm using HBLA to kind of supplement it and bring in those picture books for my 1st graders. And it's working out so well, you guys. I really like not balancing the 2 HBLs. It's making it my life so much easier, especially during this season when my 1st graders just need a lot of me. It's hard to also do all the science and history. And so it's nice to kind of combine, if you will. And so it's been so good. It's been so good. Let me see what I brought over. Okay. So this is one of the main spines for HBLD, and I'm really liking it. It's called The Beginner's American History from Christopher Columbus to John Sutter. And what it's doing is it's highlighting people. And it's been really good, especially since right now we're in kind of like colonization, all the early explorers and where they went and what they found and all that stuff. And we're actually taking it a step further for my big kids, again, my 4th grader and 5th grader, is they're doing the American History lap book that Sonlight has. You guys, this thing's fantastic. My kids are really enjoying it. And I'll show you the one spread here that we're working the most on right now. And it's the Explorer spread. And it's like every explorer has a little booklet. And so as we're covering these different explorers in our readings, and as we're looking up on our map, which I have been hanging up on my wall, as we've been kind of tracing the routes that they're taking, what they're discovering, what the impact of that is, we're also kind of reinforcing that with this lap book. So it's been really good. I feel like they're kind of getting it from all sides, which I'll tell you a little bit about the readers and read alouds in just a second. But I do want to mention a resource I'm adding to the program. So when I was thinking about early American history and I was thinking about what I wanted to really emphasize for my kids at these ages, is I wanted them to have a good idea of history. So when it comes to like Native Americans and talking about the indigenous people, Sonlight has this resource. Although it is kind of more in their Bible section, it does go kind of tribe by tribe. Now I've liked this. I'm adjusting it to do it in just one day. So basically the way this is set up, so like this is the chapter week 7 on the Inuit tribe, is it'll have information about the tribe and then it'll have a prayer. Then the next day a little information and a prayer, a little information. So what I'm doing is on one of those days, I will just read all the information, because I think it's really good to kind of get a tribe by tribe study, if you will, especially as it's relevant to the history, right? When you're talking like Jamestown and the Powhatan tribe, I think that's how you say it. Not quite sure, but it's good for all that. So I'm really liking how I'm adjusting it because I wanted to include this book. And so this is a resource that came as a part of the Build Your Library program, which I'm not even kind of using. I just really like to support her, and I really like this book. It's called An Indigenous People's History of the United States for Young People by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. Now, this is really good. It's a little bit much for my kids, and so what I'm doing is I'm kind of going chapter by chapter and I'm pulling out what is interesting. Like for instance, the first chapter talked about like corn, and it talks about the impact of corn and how like corn originated in Mexico and then it went north and it went south, and all the indigenous tribes, they had all these trading networks and all this stuff set up pre 1492. Like all of this stuff was going on, and it was kind of making that point. And also the current chapter we're on is talking about understanding the culture of conquest, it's called. So understanding Europe at the time of all these explorers. And so because it's easy to vilify sometimes and be like, oh, they're just coming and taking over and stealing their gold. And yes, there's some terrible historical facts that come with the explorers and what happened, right? I think it's also important to kind of have different perspectives, understand maybe where that perspective is, but on the same token, understand the perspective of the indigenous people of the Americas. And so this really focuses on that in a way that I like bringing into our studies. And by no means is this like not included in here. I feel like it will tell you some of the things that like Columbus did and how he treated some of the tribes he encountered and things like that. So that is covered. And so that's a good thing. But I like a little bit more. And so I added that resource, which I'm really appreciating. And so the other thing about history is, so like I said, it's all kind of like very immersive. And so let me show you what the kids are reading. So the kids started reading this one, A Lion to Guard Us by Clyde Robert Beulah. Now, technically this was not the first reader scheduled in level D. It was, I think, The Corn Grows Ripe, which I was not opposed to. My kids really like Clyde Robert Beulah. So I had them start with this, and I had read it and made notes in it and kind of made a little tracker sheet here for them to follow. And so my kids really liked that, and then they moved into this book. This takes a little bit more brain space, and what I did is I am pre-reading their readers, which I talked about in some of my summer prep videos. So I read this book, and I have the questions from Sonlight, and I'm just making myself little notes on them. And it's nice because then we can talk about other things. Like I'm like, oh, did you notice that like John Smith encouraged Samuel to like journal or write out his feelings when he was, you know, chained up in this book, and all of this stuff that's going on in this book. And then I could be like, do you ever feel like you could process your emotions better if you wrote them down? You know, so we can have some good conversations. It's fun to kind of have this perspective while we're reading the history also, while we're reading kind of like what actually happened, and then to have this story of like John Smith and setting up Jamestown and things like that. So I love that. And then what I'm reading to them, again, I added a little. So Pedro's journal used to be in the program, and Sonlight still sells it. So I picked it up because I've heard such good things about it. I've heard it really helps Christopher Columbus and the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria come alive through this boy who is a scribe on the ship and is kind of recording and documenting. So we started with this. It just took us an extra week, so it's kind of pushed us back on our actual read aloud, but that's okay. It's okay, we'll catch up eventually. So what we're reading now is Peacemaker by Joseph Bruchac. This is an excellent book. So this is the way the program is bringing in the indigenous perspective, is through an amazing story like this one about the Iroquois Nation and how they have these 5 major tribes and they did a lot of infighting. And it's kind of about that, and it's about this boy and his friend. It's really good. And so that is history. I just love homeschool, you guys. I love this. I love the fact that we're having all these discussions, and we're having this discussion on the level of my 4th and 5th grader, but then some of it does filter down to my 1st graders, who I don't make stay for things like this. Sometimes they do. They always listen to the read aloud because that's what we read over lunch. And so it's all very much involved, and we've had some amazing discussions. So, okay, I realize I just spent so much time on that. So I'm gonna go fast through the other subjects. So science is going great. I am running 2 programs on science. I thought about combining, but I just love science, and the resources, all the Usborne books are fantastic. Both of the Usborne books, one for the Science A and the Science D, they both have those scannable links, and we've been watching all the videos, and it has really been fun, and it's really improved the science, and so we've liked that. My son, I am challenging him to do the reading and the activity sheets himself, and it's going well so far. I think he gets more out of it when I read it than when he does, but I'm still having him practice it because he does then kind of hear me read it, because I do read the science to his sister, who is doing Science D as well, but it's just all kind of part of the practice. So that's science. And then Bible. We did move Bible to a different time of the day, which actually that is going to be my next video, is our schedule. So I won't talk too much about the schedule here, but we did move Bible to over dinner to include my husband, because I have been wanting to include my husband in our homeschool for a long time. And I feel like it's really fun to have him around for discussions that we have for like this book, which, speaking of this book, I'm doing differently this year. So this year, instead of reading it ahead of time and kind of summarizing it for the kids, I'm using it how it's written, which is written to the parent to then have these discussions, right? It's not written to be read aloud. I mean, I know Sonlight says you can do that. I think that's been challenging for me, and I haven't found that to be successful. Since I kind of have been doing it as intended, basically I'll read all this information to myself, and then there's these conversation guides, like there's an open the conversation. So on the first day of the week, I will just ask the question opener. Like for instance, this one for chapter 1, which the question for chapter 1, the overarching question for chapter 1 is, what can we learn about God from nature? And so the opener is, imagine that you grew up without hearing anything that's in the Bible. What, if anything, do you think you would be able to know about God from looking at the world around you? And then we have a conversation. It's just like literally just listening to what they say. And I like that. And then it goes to advancing the conversation and bringing in some Bible verses, bringing in some of what I read, some of the example stories, and then always ends with kind of like an advanced conversation, which usually brings it to the around at like, okay, so on this blog, this atheist said X, Y, or Z. How would you respond based on what we have talked about this week? That kind of repeats for all the different questions in the book. Like, where does life come from? Where did the universe come from? Those are just a couple, which I love those kinds of questions. So we're doing that more, and it's been really nice to have my husband there too, to kind of be able to interject and all of those things. And so I've been really liking that for Bible. Otherwise, we're reading the Bible and we're memorizing scripture, which is going well. So for read alouds, I do have a few that were non-history that kind of go with my boys, the twins program. Mrs. Pigglewiggle. I love this book. My boys love this book. I'll use this book in my parenting, being like, should I call Mrs. Pigglewiggle? Do you need the talkbacker cure or something like that? You know, all the different cures from this book, which if you've read it, you know. They really liked it. I mean, it definitely has olden time language. So that's been really good. The next book we're doing for them, because like I said, we are slowing down their program because the big kids American history is to a 2-year program and theirs is a 1-year program. So we're just kind of doing it at half speed. So I'm adding some extra books. So this was a favorite that we read years ago with the big kids, and it's Poppy by A.V. It's Oh, I just love this. Mr. Otax, the owl, the evil owl. It's been really fun. And then at nighttime, we're finishing up Wing Feather Saga, book 4. We're like have 200 pages left. And then Harry Potter 1, we're reading the illustrated copy. And then the boys are also reading The Horse and His Boy with my husband at night. So we have some good other books. We have lots of books we're reading. Clearly, we are a very book heavy homeschool, which is not new if you've been around for a while. But let me shift gears into my individual kids and their grade levels. So 5th grade, I feel like my oldest always gives me the most like pause and just like, am I doing this right? What are we doing? But I think it's been going really well. Actually, he's been the one that's told me like he is loving homeschool. He's so excited to do all the things that we're doing this year, which is a little different story for my daughter, but I'm really happy that at least my 5th grader is excited for what we're doing. So there's a lot of things that are the same. We have moved on to Saxon 6.5. It's very similar. He's doing it the same. He still does his Sonlight readers, which I've already showed you those. He has his independent work like his handwriting and typing and logic, all the same. I'm not really going to get into that because it's not as interesting as say like the things that are a little bit different, which is to talk about IEW. That's the first thing, is IEW, which this is, I guess, is the parent's guide. Okay, what are my thoughts on IEW? I'm liking it so far. He's liking it. I'm not like loving it. Like it feels like the internet loves this program. I think there's been some key things that are really helpful. I feel like him being able to just get like pen to paper and being able to write a paragraph in the IEW style has been really confidence boosting for him. I think some things like writing it in pen and double spacing and hiring an editor and some of those things has also been really good for him in his ability to accept correction, if you will, or edits, was probably a better way to put it. And so that's been really good. Now, for him, like for instance, this past week, we were on week 3 of IEW. And so it's good. Like he does his keyword outline, which what I'm liking about keyword outlining, I like that it causes him to stop and formulate a sentence in his mind, because there's a lot of like practicing it orally. And so I can see him stop and take those like 3 words and be like, try to make a sentence out of that. Like it's not quite enough information to remember exactly the original sentence. So he has to do it himself, which I like. I like that thought process. And so the keyword outline for my son, for him, he's still pretty bad at spelling. What we are doing is I'm doing kind of a first round of I will fix his spelling edits, which this is just his first rough draft. And I just go through and instead of fixing any sentence structure or commas or anything, I strictly do spelling. And then I have him sit down on the computer and just type it. Type up all the fixes, including the spelling, and print it off. And he gives that to me. And that's when I go through and do kind of the edits. And then he prints it back out and he has his final copy and he has his checklist. And so all of this goes in a pile and we staple it all together and put it in his binder. So I'm liking that. I'm a little still insecure about like editing and fixing. And yes, I did get the teaching course from IEW. I need to do it more. I've started doing it. I think for me, it was like, I just don't want to like take a paragraph and make a keyword outline and pretend I'm the student. I get the value of that. I just don't want to do it. And so I have yet to get to the part where it talks about how to be the editor. There is like an article in the appendix of the program that helps a little bit, but I'm still a little insecure about like how to make fixes, how to rearrange sentences, where do commas go. And I think what my plan is, since it's just a 24-week program, is we're going to make sure to shoot to get the first 12 weeks done this term until Christmas, and then maybe pick up some Sonlight assignments just to give us a little breathing space on it, and maybe try to apply some of these things to a different sort of assignment. That's my thoughts. Because we're also doing part of the Sonlight Language Arts. So this is Language Arts D. I'm having him do the first 2 days, which is the dictation and the dictation application, or it's like grammar and punctuation and things like that. Now, dictation is going well. Again, he's not very good at spelling, but it forces him to keep doing it. Keep trying. The way I'm doing it right now is I give him some time to kind of look at the passage, practice some words, check out the spelling, and then I will dictate it to him. And then I read it back to him to see if he can hear any of his mistakes. And then I have him self-correct. Like I have him go word by word and correct the spelling to see if he can catch it. And so just to kind of just work with it more. And then it comes to the dictation application, which I'm still on the fence about. So this is written to the student. And like this has to do with adverbs and things like that. So it'll do a little bit of teaching on adverbs, and then it like here it has him do a little bit of like copy this and add adverbs or switch out these words and make them a better adverb, like so making your writing more robust. Because what I do like about the language arts from Sonlight is all of their grammar teaching is really geared towards improving writing. So it's like there's probably more grammar that could be taught, more in-depth grammar, but I feel like they don't take that tactic, at least in their weekly schedule. So that's worked okay. Again, this is his year of practicing that independence. So I've let him read it himself, try it, and then we look at it and we talk about it. We're like, did you understand? And he'll be like, no, not really. So I just did it. And I was like, is that a good idea? I was like, no, I should get you. And stuff like that. So we're able to have some of those conversations where it's like the idea of giving him a little bit of rope and then seeing kind of what he does with it and working with him and helping him build those habits, I guess, of how to approach things like this. So it's good. I feel like we're doing a lot of practicing in 5th grade. And I'm trying to think of what else we're doing. Oh, logic of English. You know what? We're doing logic of English. I've talked about this. We're on to level B for him. We're just skipping day 3. And day 3 is the grammar section. I decided to include day 4, vocabulary, because it's just working on like prefixes and suffixes, and it's usually pretty quick. We've already been through this program once, so a lot of the stuff we've already covered, but he doesn't quite remember it, so it's like we're redoing it. And then we're just using some different level B words for spelling and stuff. And this year I decided to do the spelling with him. Last year I used Miss Denise on the YouTube channel where she does spelling analysis with the kids. You know, what I realized is he does it, but I'm not sure if he's engaged with it as much as he's just trying to do it. But when I work with him, I can catch the fact that he's not engaging or understanding. And the other thing is if I'm working on spelling analysis, which I just brought this little quick reference guide, because I've been using the quick reference guides this year a lot more than I have in the past, but the quick reference guide, and I am doing the analysis with him, I get used to the process. So then say he has a word in his dictation or in his IEW, a spelling word that maybe I think he should know, we can kind of approach it in more of the logic of English spelling fashion and just hit spelling all the time, because it's still a big struggle for him. And so it's still a big focus for homeschooling. So I think that was it for my 5th grader. Now, my 4th grader, my daughter, she's just different. And I've talked about this all last year. And she is still my child that I need to do the most problem solving with. I feel like she does not do well with like, here, have a little rope, see what you do. Like, as opposed to her brother, what she will do is she will cut corners and just not do stuff and hope I don't check because I'm overly busy, right? I am working with my twins, which I'll get to in this next section. And so she kind of takes advantage of that and doesn't do things. What I have learned is she does the best if she sits beside me. So I have moved her into the next Saxon level, Saxon 5-4, which is more geared towards the student, right? And she's not loving it. She's not loving the fact that there's like 100 facts every day. And so what we've started doing is I've started having her sit with me, and when she gets frustrated, we work on the little techniques. I was like, do you remember we go to base 10 and we use the 10? I give her all the tips and tricks, and she's fine when she remembers that. And then I give her the incentive of, if you do this with a happy heart, we can cross off the bottom 3 lines, the last 30 facts. And so she really likes that. And then this year I've moved to both of my big kids fixing their Saxon homework the next day. So that's the first thing they have to do, is they have to look at the yesterday's work, and whatever I've circled, they have to go back and fix it. She'll just not do it and then be like, oh, I didn't know. And she totally knows that she needs to do that. She's just hoping I don't check. So I'm just making her sit beside me to do those things. And she's getting there. She's settling in. She's having less like panicky moments and just kind of allowing herself to kind of get her feet under her for the school year. So that's Saxon. She's also reading the readers. She's doing pretty good. Again, she's my kiddo who will read it a lot faster. Then I'm like, wait a second, are you getting it? And then she has to read it again. If she, one, can't answer the questions, or it seems like she's making it up, and then I'm like, you have to read it more closely. She has the skills, so it's not a skills thing for her. She wants to do it quickly so she can be done. And then she also has all her independent work. So in June, I was saying, we're going to continue with the Good and the Beautiful level 3. There was a couple reasons. I just decided I'm going to move her straight into level 4. She still really likes it. I mean, there was a point when I'm like, oh, should I switch her out of it entirely? I don't know. I'm not loving this program as much as I really liked the level 3, but I really need independence from her, if you will. I need it not to be so reliant on me. And so when it comes to this program, which I only brought the writing and spelling over, there's a whole nother book that has more of the grammar pieces. She does okay. She does better when I sit by her. And that helps me. I'd be like, okay, let me teach you. Sometimes it's just like she doesn't absorb the teaching from the book as well. And so as long as I can kind of like intro the teaching to her and then show her what she needs to do, she's okay. You know, it just comes and goes. She really likes it though. She still really, really likes it. Why I'm holding this one up is for a couple of reasons. One, I had already decided to take out the spelling. We're not using the Good and the Beautiful spelling. I had already made that decision. We are using All About Spelling level 1 and level 2 this year. So I started her about halfway through at like lesson 13 of level 1, just because I skimmed through all that and she was fine. The very first day I just kind of quizzed her on some of those cards and she could spell all of them. And so we've just started on this and we're doing this twice a week and we're balancing it with the Good and the Beautiful. So do writing every other day and spelling on the other days. And so basically when it assigns spelling for the Good and the Beautiful, we do All About Spelling and we do 1 week in 2 days pretty much. I don't know if we're going to need to slow down, but at this point that's a good pace for her. And then it comes to the writing in here, which is the part of this program that I'm not loving as much. I'm not like to the point where I'm frustrated or anything. I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to use it or how to work with it. I'm not sure how much she's getting. I'm not sure how much it's helping her. Like it's teaching a lot of like learn from the masters. So it'll let you read a paragraph and it'll be like, do you see the descriptive language or do you see the sensory language used? And she can see that. And then it'll have her like write a little bit herself and she's like, no, I can't write anything. Like it doesn't translate. It doesn't like that teaching doesn't impact her being able to write something. She's very aware of her spelling, which isn't the best. Again, I don't have natural spellers and that's okay. We can work with that, but it does hamper her when it comes to her writing. Like I feel like she spends too much time focusing on the fact that she can't spell. And this program isn't helping that. I'm not sure if it's teaching her to write very well. Now, I'm just, it is what it is. I'm gonna stick with it for a while because one, it's important to stick with things, for sure. The other thing is, I had thought about just putting her in IEW. I talked about that this summer. I picked her up her own student workbook. And I just feel like she's not ready for that. Like this is a struggle, but I think she's gonna get some stuff out of this in order to set her up to next year when she's in 5th grade to do that structure and style 1A from IEW and to start giving her that foundation that I'm working with my son. And I think it's totally fine to kind of kick it down the road, to realize that I think that will help her the most. I just don't think that is appropriate for right now for her current state and how she is pushing back on things that she's not handling very well. I think sticking with something that she likes, even though she doesn't like the writing time, I'll keep you updated. Because it's just like, it's not my favorite. Maybe nothing's my favorite. I obviously cannot be pleased when it comes to writing programs. And so this is just, we're just gonna stick with it. And that's my current thoughts. My 1st graders are doing awesome. They're progressing really well. We kept going a little bit with all the Abeka stuff over the summer, which was the math and the phonics. And the thing is we're keeping on the same pace with K5, Abeka K5, which covers math and phonics. And they just keep progressing and their little readers get longer and more challenging and they're doing fine. And what I love is I did not feel the need to jump to grade 1 because I have done grade 1 Abeka before. I just feel like Abeka is ahead by at least a grade, maybe half a grade to a grade ahead. So if we finish K5, because I think we're on lesson like 135 and we won't even totally finish it. We'll probably go to like lesson 160 when they stop doing new stuff. We'll go to 160 and then maybe we'll pick up grade 1 and we'll start on lesson 10 or something like that. Wherever it will result in a fairly seamless transition, even if when we do some of the grade 1 stuff, it'll be review. It just goes faster. And I know it goes faster, and they're not ready for that, because when I get to like the assignment for them for reading, for instance, in their little readers, which I should have brought some of their stuff over, they won't want to read 3 pages of it. They'll want to read like 2 maybe, and they'll get tired by about 1.5. And so it's like, I can gauge where they're at, and so sometimes I spread out their reading. And so for me, that tells me that I can't jump too fast to grade 1, or else their expectations will be even more, and I don't want to push them in these subjects, in kind of these foundational subjects of math and reading, because I want them to feel confident in these subjects and to like be excited about reading and love math, all these things. So I'm just taking my time on them. And really that's what we're doing. Phonics, and we're doing math, and we're doing handwriting for them. And that's it. Other than, like I said, we're doing a little science and a little history. So what my struggle is with them is that it's hard to teach them together. So I've just been like, fine, I'm not going to teach them together. I'm going to teach them separate. And so I'll call one in, and in the morning we'll do reading. And so I'll do, twin A does reading, and then I'll do twin B, and I'll do the exact same lesson all over again. Same, 25 minutes or whatever it took. And then we'll do that for math, twin A, math, twin B. And so it takes a lot of my time, which is the struggle when it comes to my 4th grader, because she also needs my time, and that's just a reality. And I'm trying to solve that, because I can't say, well, you can't need me because I have to be with your brothers, because she needs me. But it's trying to figure out how to maybe balance them. And at this point, I pulled them apart after trying to teach them together last year, and that didn't work as well. I think I need to find somewhere a little bit more in between that, where I could teach them maybe both at the same time, but anything that causes competition or fighting, I can split up. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. So that's something that I am brainstorming right now. That's kind of on my mind for as we keep going into the fall, is how can I work on that, because it literally takes all of my time to do math and phonics with my 1st graders. And I have 2 other kids who are not independent, and I don't have that expectation of them, and I don't need them to be, because they need to be where they're at. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's my update. We're in it. I'm trying to kind of use what I have. I'm trying to, problem solve. A lot of it is just business as usual, though, at the same time. There's a lot of things that are just, do the next thing. And I didn't really talk about a lot of those things, but it's good. You guys, it's a lot. It's a full day. I'm homeschooling a lot with these ages, and 4 of them, but that's okay, because I love it. And I hope this kind of a video is encouraging to you. You get a lot of my kind of train of thought in these videos, but also just an update on how things are going. So let me know any thoughts, opinions, advice down below, as well as share with me how your start is going. If you have started, how's it going? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys. And so, yeah. Let's see. Let's do an emoji just for fun. Oh, we'll do a mouse emoji. I think there's a mouse emoji, probably, for Poppy. Put that down below if you are here and you've been watching and you had nothing necessarily to say. You just wanted to let me know that you were here, which I love. And otherwise, you guys, I hope you are well. And like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, all those things. And I will see you guys in the next homeschool video, which will be our schedule video. So stay tuned for that, because I have lots of thoughts and things to share. All right, guys, take care.